Hey gang, it's JC and this is the Daily Dose for Tuesday, June 22nd, 2011. A combined venture with Mind Active in beautiful downtown Brentwood. Great archives, top of the page, eye candy along the bottom, and our rock and roll poll question is right in the corner. We'll get into that right now, as a matter of fact. Yesterday our question was, does Albert's injury mean it's the end of the Cardinals in 2011? And 12% of you said yes, and 88% of you said no. You answered that question before you saw last night's ball game. What the? All right, today's rock and roll poll question. Do you have access to a swimming pool? Answer yes and no. And there you go. It's in the corner right there. We'll give you the results on the air every day on the Big 550 KTRS, where Trish Gazelle and I are on from noon until 3. That is every day. Normally I do the celebrity birthdays and stuff like that at the end of the piece, but I'm going to start with it today because it was 2 years ago that George Carlin passed away. Now, I have to tell you, you have no idea the number of people that you listen to on the radio and in television and stuff like that every day who were inspired to get into some form of entertainment, particularly comedy or disc jockeys, radio personalities, talk show hosts, people on television. People who got in because at a very early age they were influenced by George Carlin. I still remember, I think the year was 1967, and I paid $2.99 for an album by George Carlin, his very first one called Takeoffs and Put-Ons. I still remember it was recorded at the Rooster Tail in Detroit, Michigan, and the front of the album cover had those strip photos. You know, you go to a little booth at the mall and you put like $2 in and they give you like the strip pictures, and it was just a series of those things of George Carlin mugging for the camera. And that the Indian Sergeant was on there, the Hippy Dippy Weatherman, Tondaleo Breckenridge, just, you know, Divorce Game, you know, all that. Actually, Divorce Game was on AM and FM. My memory's failing me, but I memorized so much of that album. And then years later, without knowing anything about this, I would run into people like my friend Vic Porcelli, who he and I would just trade off doing Carlinisms. He would do a line from the album, I would do a line from the album. And we would go on like that for, 20 minutes, just doing stuff. And to this day, it's Al Sleet, your Hippy Dippy Weatherman with all the Hippy Dippy Weatherman. And I got to meet George Carlin many times, got to work with him on several occasions, had him on the show a couple of times. And it's so odd that we do the show at the Westport facilities there, because right below it is where the Westport Playhouse was. And I did emceed many shows with George Carlin, but the best one, George Carlin was doing two shows. He was doing an 8 o'clock show and a 10 o'clock show. And he finished the 8 o'clock show and went back into his dressing room where the famous game between the Oakland A's and the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Kirk Gibson home run game. Well, George Carlin's in his dressing room. He won't come out because this game is dragging on, because all the drama of the setup, and Dennis Eckersley is brought into the game, and that's Tony La Russa's team, and people, just like 1,300 people sitting in the Westport Playhouse waiting for the show to start. And it's 10 o'clock, it's 10:05, it's 10:10, it's 10:15, it's 20 after 10. Kirk Gibson hits the home run. He goes, "Good, let's go." And I sat there and watched that home run by Kirk Gibson on a fuzzy color television with terrible reception in the bowels of the Westport complex. As soon as Kirk Gibson hit that home run, he clapped his hands together and said, "Let's go." And we went out and I introduced him and I explained to everybody why we were late. I told them what happened. Big rousing ovation. George came out and the rest is history. Dennis Blair was the opening act for George Carlin for 14 years. And Dennis and I became very, very good friends. As a matter of fact, the morning after George Carlin died, we had Louis Black and Dennis Blair on the air. Louis Black, that's significant, because every time George Carlin was asked, what young comedian out there right now do you admire? And he would always talk about Louis Black, even though he's not young, but compared to George Carlin, I guess so. George Carlin was 71, heart failure 2 years ago, and we really, really lost something when we lost George Carlin. And again, it was incredibly significant in ways that you may never, ever know. This is also the date in 1984 that The Karate Kid came out. Ralph Macchio, Pat Morita. Always look, Danielson. Great movie to this day. All right, LensCrafters has settled a sexual harassment suit. Once the lawsuit was filed, the settlement took about an hour. Excuse me, I have a phone call. Hold on. Can I just answer this really quick? I know this is going to be my wife. It is not my wife. Okay, well, we'll have to get back to that at some point. The Florida Marlins hired 80-year-old Jack McKeon to be their new manager. Responded every other citizen in Florida, it's about time they added some young blood. Jack McKeon is so old, when he hears that the Indians are in town, he cocks his six-shooter and says, "Sioux or Apache." Jack McKeon is so old, he's excited about traveling to play against the Dodgers because he's got family in Brooklyn. Jack McKeon is so old, he never pulls a pitcher because his rascal scooter can't get up the mound. Jack McKeon is so old, he doesn't run onto the field to argue with umpires. He goes out to show them pictures of his grandkids. Jack McKeon is so old, he remembers when the Cubs didn't suck. All right. If you have a Martha Stewart glass top patio table, you might want to wear your protective headgear because they explode. This is really bizarre. It happened on Father's Day to the Passarella family near Denver, Colorado. They had just finished eating when the tabletop shattered. Apparently, there have been hundreds of complaints against the same tabletop, and there was even a class action suit a couple of years ago. The Consumer Product Safety Commission asked Martha Stewart Living to redesign the table in 06. The Passarella said they bought those in 08 or 09, so something's still a problem there, isn't it? A rep from Martha's company says, da, 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 da. Yeah. Levi Johnston isn't the only person Bristol Palin rips in her new book. She also takes a shot at Meghan McCain. She said she never trusted her from the very beginning. They got an unfriendly vibe from one another. And she says every time we saw Meghan, she seemed to be constantly checking us out, comparing my family to hers, and complaining. Adam West is going to get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame next year. So are Jennifer Aniston, Kate Winslet, Scarlett Johansson, Vin Diesel. Also, Malcolm McDowell, iconic actor from A Clockwork Orange, Valerie Bertinelli, Simpsons creator Matt Groening, Mariska Hargitay, Patricia Heaton, Marg Helgenberger, Jennifer Lopez, as we said, America. Boys to Men, Vince Gill, and Ann and Nancy Wilson. Don't get too impressed. All you really need is somebody to nominate you and $25,000 cash, and you have to promise to be there when they do the unveiling. Bruce delivered the eulogy for Clarence Clemens yesterday in Palm Beach, Florida. 4 of his ex-wives were there. One ex-wife didn't want to show up. They're spreading his ashes somewhere in Hawaii. 10th Avenue freeze-out. Bruce did an acoustic version of that yesterday. HBO is doing a show loosely based on Mike Tyson's early days in the ring. It's called The Brick. Tyson and Spike Lee are among those working on it behind the scenes. Conan O'Brien is going to have a cameo in the upcoming episode of How I Met Your Mother. He won't be a guest star. He's going to be an extra. Now, an extra is just like, he could be just like standing in the background somewhere. I don't know. I don't know. This is the goofiest story I've ever read. Also, that documentary on Conan O'Brien's comedy tour, the one where he went out and did comedy shows across the country before his TNT show went, or TBS, or wherever the hell he is now. That movie starts Friday exclusively at the Tivoli. It'll only be there for a week. Eric Mink has seen it. He gave it 4 out of 5 minks, which is high praise because he's a tough nut to crack sometimes. The average man says he figures out if he really likes his date within 15 minutes. Women say they wait till the end of the day to make that determination. Since 1976, the amount of fireworks Americans buy in this country has gone up 700%. But the number of injuries from fireworks is down 90%. For comparison's sake, in 2009, 2 people were crushed by vending machines they were trying to tip over, which is 1 more than people got blown up by fireworks. If you drive a lot, there's a higher chance you're going to get skin cancer on your upper left arm. You know why? Because your arm's hanging out the window and you don't realize it because the wind is blowing and your arm is getting subjected to all those ultraviolet rays. And this is like straight out of a Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner thing. In New Jersey, a woman fell asleep at the wheel of her car. She's driving along, smashes through a building. What sort of a building was it? It was a mattress store. And she was basically thrown out of the car, but the mattresses cushioned the blow. Birthdays today, Kurt Warner is turning 40. 40. And JC's Eye Candy today. We were talking about this on the air last week on the Big 550 KTRS, where Trish and I do the noon to 3 show. And I was telling her about in 1970, I was driving along in my grandfather's Ford Fairlane. The car was huge, like seated 8 for dinner. And I'm driving along, and a guy T-bones me, rolls me over, providing quality entertainment for a neighborhood on the south side of Chicago on an otherwise, sort of dreary, dull Saturday afternoon. The pictures of my rollover from 1970 are in JC's Eye Candy. It's right below what you're looking at right now. All right, Dr. Kathy Naughton, Center for Sexual Health. Speaking Sexually, that's our new feature. We started it a couple of weeks ago. You can read all about sex stories. And Dr. Naughton is going to be on the air with us in the 2 o'clock hour, by the way, tomorrow, Thursday, on the showgram of the Big 550 KTRS. And we're going to talk about testosterone therapy, which is really interesting because all of us aren't getting any younger, and there's this whole thing. You watch the commercials all the time, about whether or not, a little shot of something would help you, or whether there's dangers associated with it. So that's going to be tomorrow, Thursday afternoon, 2:15 on the Big 550 KTRS. Again, our rock and roll poll question today: do you have access to a pool? Please answer yes or no. We'll give you the tabulations as we roll on here. That's it. JC's Daily Dose for Wednesday, June 22nd, 2011, a combined venture with Mind Active in beautiful downtown Brentwood. In the meantime, we've beaten this one to death. Have a good one. See you later. Bye.